It's great to have Anthony Calhoun here on Sports Spectrum. How are you, my friend? This is a long time coming.
I know, Jason, it is so great to be with you. Let me just say thank you for the platform you're using just be a positive light for so many people. And um, I literally grew up reading Sport Spectrum.
Yeah.
I did. And so I think when we first time we met, I told you that. And I know the impact that it had on me and my life growing up and in high school reading it. And then obviously I went up to Syracuse and read it as well. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that later, but like there are some significant, just amazing, um, just just powerful God stories that happened in my life in connection with with the magazine and Sports Spectrum for 28 plus years ago. That I love to share with you guys here on the podcast. But it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me. I know we've been trying to do this. My
Yeah.
schedule's been crazy, but I'm glad that the Lord worked out opportunity for we can talk today.
Well, as people are hearing this, it's like the end of July and it's, middle of summer, if you will. I want people to have an idea.
Yeah.
I want to get to your testimony in a minute, about Christ. We usually start there, but because what you just mentioned, it brings to mind just how busy, if you want to call it that. I mean, busy is a word that we overuse, I think, sometimes in life,
Yeah.
but you've been busy since really January when I first, talked to you and saw you. Actually, it was a couple years ago, but this past January when you were in, or February, I guess it would have been, where you get to cover the Super Bowl every year, as does Sports Spectrum. And we usually cross paths or at least
Yeah.
give ourselves a nod and a wink and a hello. And you were in Vegas. So just take us through what this first 5, 6, 7 months have been that you've been covering and all the different things that you've been involved with, because I think people need to hear it. There's a lot going on in Indianapolis for Anthony Calhoun.
Yeah. I would just say this, that, God has truly blessed me with an incredible career platform in my home state. I mean, I went to Syracuse and I always dreamed of like getting the opportunity to, work at ESPN. And that was kind of where I was headed, do the national scene. And God had another direction for me. He wanted me back in my home state. And I've been here for reaching next month, it would be 26 years at one station, Wish TV. But with this job, you get a lot of wonderful opportunities. As you mentioned, being in a great sports town like Indy and being in a great station where I'm at, a legendary station at Wish TV, I get a chance to see and cover a lot of events. And so this year it has been, it's been wild. I started the year off, we were at the Super Bowl in Las Vegas, and we're there for 10 days, 7 to 10 days. And it's pretty intense. We're bringing coverage back to the folks here in Indiana. And then we're doing specials as well, 30-minute special we put on leading up to the big game. And then after that, we had a big event here in Indy, surprise, the NBA All-Star game.
Yes.
And that was first time in a couple of decades. And so for it to be here in our city was just awesome. But that means, hey, you got to get ready to go to work as well. So I literally was in Las Vegas on that Monday after the end of the Super Bowl. And then I'm back to work, ready to go, doing stories and specials starting that Wednesday throughout the weekend for the All-Star game. And I know I'm biased, but nobody hosts sporting events like the great city of Indianapolis, and what this city has done just with the NBA All-Star game was phenomenal. Outside the weather was tough that Friday, but the weekend was great. And I know I think they set records as far as attendance and things like that. Folks just really get into big sporting events here in the town. So I had that. And then after that, the NBA All-Star game, we had a Purdue basketball team that wanted to go to the Final Four. How about what a great run that was. And it was great covering the Boilermakers all the way to Phoenix. And Matt Painter does a tremendous job with that team and covering them in Phoenix. And then after that, I had the opportunity to head to Augusta. I wasn't working. I was just going, taking a buddy of mine. He's never been before. So I had a chance to go there, spend some time on mentor Jim Nance. And then after that, was back here in Indy gearing up for what we call the month of May, and that's the Indianapolis 500. And if anybody's not from Indy or from the Indiana, it's really, you have two races that happen, but the big one obviously is the greatest spectacle race, the Indy 500. And it's literally, we celebrate it the entire month. Once May 1st hits, you'll see the flags in people's yards and everyone just just pumped up for the race that comes to town every year, and that's in town, obviously. And it is, I always tell sports fans that, everyone talks about you got to go to the Masters. That's one you got to see. If you love tennis, I always say Wimbledon's one you got to see. But if you're a true sports fan as well, you got to get to the Indy 500. There is nothing like it. Over 300,000 fans, all in one place, watching a race. So I had that to do, and that was in May, and that's the entire month of May. And my workload changed a little bit the last couple of years because I'm on the big screen. So I interview a lot of the drivers on the big screen, and it's pretty cool. It's a cool feeling because you're talking to these drivers, especially on race day, and there's like 300,000 people that see you on the big screen. So it's pretty wild. My phone's blowing up. People giving me texts all the time. I mean, I see it. And so it's a little nerve wracking, but it's a lot of fun. And then after that, I gear up for what I believe God has called me to do. I always say this all the time. It was wonderful to be on TV, and we're grateful for people that tune in each night and watch it. But for me personally, I'm called to give back. It talks about in Luke, too much is given, much is required, right? And so that's a verse that really sticks directly in my heart. It comes from my parents. They instilled that in me at a young age. And so I host a charity golf outing, and we raise money for teachers and inner city kids. And we've been doing this for a very long time. And God is so good. This past June, we broke our record, best year ever.
Wow.
$525,000 we raised, Jay, for these
Incredible.
kids, these teachers. And, you sit back and you think about it and you're just like, there's a lot of money. There's a lot of money for good to help others. And so that's what my summer's been like. I had a little vacation in there to take a little break. But then I will say this one thing I forgot about. We had the swimming qualifications, the U.S. Team USA swimming trials that were here back in June. And that was awesome as well, what the city did. And just to see that pool in Lucas Oil Stadium, man.
Yeah.
Just seeing the person, I got a chance to watch it one night. It was unreal. Like when they were done, the event was over that night. It was like, oh, like I want to see more. I want to see more swimming. And so Mike Tirico, he was there obviously with NBC. I was a Syracuse grad, and even here the swimmers, they all raved about just how they were seeing. It was the fastest pool they ever swam in before, and just how much the city just totally just took them in, all the swimmers, and of course wish them the best of luck obviously with the Olympics.
Yeah, well, let me throw two other things in there that you didn't necessarily cover on a daily basis, but you got Caitlin Clark.
Oh, yeah. What am I thinking?
And you also got the Pacers in the Eastern Finals, and you couldn't even cover the Pacers because you had the Indy fight. I mean, you were covering them, obviously, but it was just a whirlwind of everything, like Indianapolis being the centerpiece of sports all throughout the country. It was and still in the midst of it, obviously, with Caitlin Clark still doing her thing and the attention that she's getting. We're not going to turn this podcast into a Caitlin Clark discussion, I promise.
I know.
That's for another time, but it's just been awesome to kind of see Indy and certainly you and your work be central to what's happening in that great state and in that great city. Let's talk about your testimony. I'd love to switch there. Tell me about Christ in your life. When did you make him Lord? When did you receive him as your Savior?
Yeah. So, I've always been involved with church at a young age. And, at the age of 8 years old, I accepted Christ as a personal Savior. I was always, my family, been around my parents. Church was always important to us. It was instilled in us. You got to be in church. And I'm so glad that I got that message at such a young age because, it has done what God has done for me in my life. I wouldn't be where I am if it weren't for having a relationship with him. I wouldn't be where I am today. Yeah. And so for a young age, that's always been, it was instilled in me. And it taught me about just, how to treat others, people around you. Christ showed grace to so many people, and the grace he showed for us, you just try to be an example as best you can. I mean, no one's perfect. We all have our issues. We all have our struggles. But you want to show grace to others around you. And at a young age, that's kind of what I was always taught. And that's why I think I love giving back and trying to help others, because that's kind of like all I know. That talk about the fruits of the spirits, love, joy, peace, patience, all those things, and you try to, give those examples in your daily walk. When you're around your coworkers as best as you can, or you're around people, or when you're giving back to the community. And so I've been connected to Christ at a very young age, and it's gone with me throughout my entire life. And as I said before, I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have a relationship with Him. If I didn't, when we were going through our struggles in life, knowing how to pray, knowing to ask God to help you in tough situations. This life is hard. I mean, it's hard. And you need someone that you can call on to help you, to give you direction on tough decisions you have to make in your life, and just sometimes easy ones as well. You want Him right there by your side. So very young age started for me. And, as I look back over my life, even during my college days at Syracuse, it was God that helped me get to where I am. It was God that willed me through getting to college. Because, at colleges, man, there's some tough times,
Yep.
How are you going to pass this class? God, I need your help to give me the strength to get through this day and things like that. So, but yeah, very young age. And I'm just thankful for my parents for putting the gospel in front of my face at a young age, and just kind of just I wouldn't say pushed us, because it was our decision, but like kind of just encouraged us, like having some type of faith, having faith in your life, having a relationship, right? It matters. It matters. So for me, it's been a true blessing for me.
So I have a very random question that just came to
Yeah.
mind from this.
Yeah.
And we're around the same age, I'll say.
Yeah.
Syracuse. I went to community college for 2 years right out of high school in Auburn, New York. I don't know if you ever visited Auburn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
30 minutes west of Syracuse. So we got to go to Syracuse quite a bit. And I don't know if you were in high school or college this year, but the blizzard of 1993.
Oh, that was me. Yes.
Remember this, because we have 40 inches of snow in Auburn.
Yeah.
Because it's cold in Indiana. It's cold in Albany, New York, where I grew up.
Man.
But I had never seen snow like when I got out to the Finger Lakes region in Syracuse and in Auburn, where I went to college. I'd never seen snow like that. And we had 40 inches of snow in March of 1993 in a snowstorm. I'm just wondering if you have any memories of that. It sounds like it might have been your freshman year.
No, so here's the catch. So it was that would have been 90. Yeah, so it would be my freshman year. So freshman year, because the wild thing about that was Syracuse, in the history of the school, they've never canceled school because of snow.
That's right.
Well, it was during spring break, so people couldn't get back from Daytona, Florida, whatever. So they had to cancel school. First time in the history of the school.
Wow.
They've canceled, they canceled classes because of snow. Because, in Syracuse, you got 20, 13, 14, it doesn't matter.
You
You're
just
going
go.
to class. You just go. And so, so I remember in 1983. I want to say, I'm not sure, was that the year? I know I was in Florida because I was involved with Campus Crusade for Christ. We had this thing called the Big Break. Do you remember the Big Break?
I've heard of it. I don't know what it is. Yeah.
Yes, so it was Campus Crusade for Christ I was involved in. We would go there spring break, and it was other Christians, brothers and sisters together, and we would have just such a great time. But I believe that was the year I was down there, and we literally could not get back. We heard about school, and they're like, "Hey, they're canceling classes." I think there was either that was the year I was down there, but I know classes were closed. But I did go down to Campus Crusade for Christ for our summer break, for the spring break. Couple years. I could let praise and worship, which I'm telling you.
Wow. Okay. Praise and worship.
Great story. Moving on. But
okay.
That was great.
Well, I remember that was the year that they had the first and second round of the NCAA tournament at the Carrier Dome, and I got to go like a week or two later to see my first NCAA, tournament experience I guess I was 19 at the time, almost 20. So yeah, we were around Syracuse quite a bit, but that kind of brings it kind of a little bit full circle to my question about getting into this business. Because I think I was 15 when I realized I wanted to do broadcasting. I wanted to do media. And that's why I went to Cayuga, because I couldn't get into Syracuse's program, which is incredible. So I got into a community college to start, and they had an incredible media program in Auburn, New York at Cayuga Community College. But I realized when I was 15, like, I'm not going to be a pro athlete here. What's the next best thing? Let's talk about sports. I was not a Christian. So my question to you might differ than what I was thinking of, but not just why get into this business, but why did you know God was steering you into this business? Because you grew up as a believer.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I feel like for me, um, I love sports and I love to talk. And I knew I was going to make it money playing sports, but I knew there may be a chance for me to, maybe do okay in this business,
Yeah.
being a sportscaster. And like I knew at a young age, like at around, I don't know, 10, 11 years old, that I wanted to be a sportscaster. Like I used to watch, I literally would be at home, with like a hanger in my hand, pretend like that was my microphone, look in the mirror, pretend to be a, Brent Musburger or, Bob Costas at the time. I
Yeah.
literally was like, hey, I want to be one of those guys one day.
Howard
Uh,
Cosell was my guy, Anthony,
yeah,
when I
yeah.
was growing
Okay.
up.
Okay. Who's your guy? Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, those are the folks, I was kind of like, hey, I really I want to do this. And so, and then the more you think about it, and then the older you get, the more you realize, okay, you know, God's calling you to do this, but also God wants you to do more than just be on television. As I said earlier, like, you gotta do more. You gotta give back. You gotta
Yeah.
figure out a way to try to bless others around you. And so I knew at a young age I wanted to do this. And just the reach, the impact, the influence that you can have. Like I tell people all the time, I talk to young people, in our business, like our job is, like you can't toy with this platform that you have for us, like, this job. I mean, we have a huge responsibility as journalists, and so I always I pray to God that God help me to stay balanced as I possibly can when I'm telling stories. Help me to have a heart for these athletes I'm covering that, when I'm talking about a sensitive issue, that I can just be fair and show grace when it's necessary. Like I always think about those things all the time, and particularly with high school athletes and with college athletes as well. Because those, professionals a little different, but especially those, I really try to make sure that, hey, are we telling this story right? Am I sending the right message here? How can I help this kid, help, the student athlete? And so, like, I really take, these 26 years, 27 years, whatever I've been doing it, like, I don't take that lightly. We have a big responsibility. And so I try whenever I'm on the air, just try to show as much class as I possibly can. And I tell you, when you get stories wrong or um, you don't tell the story you want to, for me, it hurts. Like it bothers me.
Yeah.
Because I know just the platform that I have, I know, what's behind me, as far as, just as far as my reach and just how I can influence people. Like, I just want to make sure you're doing a great job of telling the story. And you know how it is now on social media and just there's so many stories and so much misinformation at times, that, you want to be right. You want to be accurate and you want to stand by, what you report and, and just, tell it the best you can. And so I always try to do that message to young people that are in our business that, just take your job seriously and, and just report the facts, and do the best you can. And once it goes, it goes, but at least you can stand by your story that, hey, I told what the story was, I told the facts, and just try to stay balanced as best you can.
Anthony Calhoun is with us here on Sports Spectrum from Indianapolis and Wish TV, sports director and anchor there. What was the big break for you when you think about, because you talked about God's plan and God's hand in this career that you've had, and there's always
Yeah.
these breaks or these moments, these pivot moments, as I like to call them, in life where you realize the Lord had his hand in opportunities, in people you met, in roles, whatever that might be. Can you kind of share with us where you saw the Lord giving you that big break and that big opportunity?
Yeah. I always talk about like, sacrifices, right? Like always when I talk to young people, like, hey, when you make sacrifices, there are tremendous benefits, right? I truly believe, like, especially in our career, when you are grinding, you're working hard and you're networking, I truly believe God's gonna open doors for you, right? And for me, this is wild. When I was in college, man, I always go back to my parents telling me, you got to make sure you keep your relationship with the Lord and Christ right there with you. You got to make sure you're praying, make sure you keep that number one in your life, right? And so when I was in college, I literally was like, making sure I was doing chemistry safe for Christ, I was going to church, but I also was doing my internship. But I was making, like I was making all these, like I hate to say sacrifice, but 'cause you go to church if you want to go to church, just because it helps you, it's good for you, right? But I knew that, like, you know, by me going to church, by me staying close to the Lord, saying the word, that like God was right there by my side. And so by me keeping him close, I truly feel like, God was opening doors for me even when I didn't know he was opening doors. And so I was interning at a local station in Syracuse, WTVH-5, same place where Mike Tirico, he got his start, and a lot of other Syracuse folks have got their start in Syracuse. So I was interning there. So I was doing that on Friday nights, man. It was crazy. I remember, like, 'cause I didn't have a car. I was literally getting on the bus. And here I am from Evansville, Indiana. I was getting on the bus on Friday nights while all my friends were all partying, whatever. And I was going over to Channel 5 in Syracuse, taking the bus, a little nervous, because it's a bigger city than where I grew up from in Indiana. And I would do that every Friday night of sacrifice, and I would do that. And then eventually I did that for 2 years. And after that, was promoted to Dan Horde, who calls the Bengals. He's a radio guy for the Bengals, promoted me to like almost a full-time producer, sports producer. So I was in college, pretty much working a lot of hours my senior year. And then eventually after that, got an opportunity to be the number three person in the sports department. And I was there for a year and a half. And then the Lord opened opportunity for me to go to Indianapolis, and the rest of the year. I actually replaced Sage Steele, of all people.
Yeah.
Replaced her, Sage, back in 1998. But to answer your question, I feel like when I graduated from college, like I knew, like I was trying to get jobs. I knew it was Channel 5 at the time. They weren't that ready to hire me, like going into the couple months before graduation. So I was nervous, like most college kids, like, hey, I got to get a job. And here we are, like in April, I got nothing. And I just felt like I just knew when Channel 5 offered me the number 3 position, I went day after graduation, I was ready to work. Never forget that. I just felt like that was the moment for me, really, where God was like, "Hey, I got you. I got your back here. You've been faithful. You worked hard. You've earned this. As far as like, you made the sacrifices. You did the internships. You networked. You connected. You know what I mean? And so, I guess that would be the moment for me where I felt like, hey, this is a moment where God's opened the door for me, because it is in our business. You just want to get in, like just get in the door. Then after that, you got to go. You got to do the work. You got to get going. And so, I would say when I graduated, that door opened for me there. And then after that, getting the opportunity to come to Indy, can describe what has transpired over the last 25 years, just people I've met, and things like that. I do want to say this real quick, because I don't want us to forget this, but back to the sports spectrum. This is kind of going back to Indy.
Yeah.
So back in 1992, that famous comeback that stood for a long, long time to a few years ago with Frank Reich and the Oilers, right? In Houston. And I remember reading Sports Spectrum and Frank Reich, and just hearing his testimony.
Yes.
And I'm like, man, what a testimony. I'm like, God, this Christian guy talking about Christ, talking about the Lord, and just how he helped him get through that game and all that. And I'm looking at him like, it's unbelievable. I'm just so blown away. Just really touched my heart. Who would have thought, 30 years, 40, whatever years later, I'll literally be texting with the guy. I was just texting with Frank yesterday. It's amazing how God works. I'm literally texting with this guy. Then you go, 10, 15 years later after that or whatever it is, I'm reading Sports Spectrum about a guy named Tony Dungy.
Yes.
And I'm like, God, I would love to cover that guy one day. What a testimony by him, what a great man he is. And then all of a sudden, I end up covering him, for his time here in Indy. So, it is crazy how God works, and just that magazine. That one thing I think about Sports Spectrum all the time, bro, was that just those connections. Frank Wright, which I cover him, obviously, cover him, he was coaching the Colts. And then, of course, Tony Dungy, one of my closest friends, we talk all the time. And it's crazy. It's amazing how it all works. Who would have thought, God says, when God has a plan, it's his plan, right? So
It's perfect, and I'm
I
so
want to
glad
share.
you said that. No, I'm so glad
Yeah,
you shared that. First of all,
yeah.
Frank Reich coming up on Sports Spectrum in a couple weeks on the
Oh,
podcast, so
good.
that's
Yeah,
pretty good. Can't
that's
wait for you to
awesome.
hear that, and, I've gotten to connect with him recently, and yes, he's everything you would hope for as a person and, faithfully loves the Lord and, has
Yeah,
had an amazing career wherever God leads him next, but all of the different God winks, God connections, God moments. I know I think it's Ernie Johnson calls them God winks. These kind of moments, right?
yeah,
You realize that the Lord is clearly having His hand in these opportunities, and these are for me. Like I remember meeting Daryl
yeah.
Strawberry and spending time with him, and suddenly I'm texting with him, and then I'm friends with him, and then he's on writing the forward to my first book, and I'm like, okay, God,
Wow.
you're just showing off right now because that's not, and it wasn't in any of my plans. I was just happy to collect the
Yeah,
guy's baseball cards when I was 12 years old. So I wonder for you, like those are two moments I'm glad you shared because there are always these sort of God winks, God moments, pivots in life that you recognize, oh my gosh, the Lord, you have your hand in
yeah,
this journey that I've been on.
yeah, man. It's just just the job in itself, just the people you meet, and you know, it's just amazing how like I know at least for me with like some of my biggest stories that I've been able to tell, um, they've occurred because I was trying to bless somebody else, then I get the blessing.
Yes.
I'll give you a prime example. One of the stories that was probably to this day one of the biggest stories ever done here in Indy. I had a chance to do a story on like we call them the big three, and they really kind of like shaped the landscape of sports in this town for so long. And I'm talking about Jim Irsay with the Colts, obviously, uh, Herb Simon with the Pacers, on the Pacers, and a guy named Tony George, who was the owner with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And this is about, I would say, 15 years ago. I did a story. I was able to get all three of these guys together.
Wow.
That in itself is like, I mean, are you serious? I mean, with their schedule, with their time, just just the demands they have and things like that. And so I was able to I had Jim Irsay and I had Tony George pretty much locked down. They agreed to do it. They said do it. And they live here. Um, but Herb Simon was a challenge because he didn't live here, and I didn't have a really good connection with him. I just didn't. I wasn't around as much as I was those two. A
Sure.
lot because he didn't live here at the time. For the most part, he was living here,
Right.
and so but I want to do the story, and I'll never forget. So I did this charity golf outing, and one of the individuals who helps me with my outing was very close to Mr. Simon, and so holy God here. I'm literally just talking to him and I think I got wind that, he had knew the family or something, but I just threw it out there and say, hey, I'm trying to work on this big story and I'm very careful about who I share stories. If I get a big story I'm working on, I keep it to myself and I don't really tell anybody about that stuff, because especially it's a big story like this. And I don't know, guys, I just said to him, I said, hey, I said, I'm working on the story. I said, I'm really trying to get a hold of Mr. Simon, but I'm having a hard time to get, connected to him because I know he didn't do a lot of interviews at the time, things like that. And this individual tells me, hey, just want you to know, because, yeah, I think I can make this happen. I know they know the family and make this happen. And so thank God I said something to this guy
Yeah.
and it worked out, got the story, but I go back, man, Jason, I go back and I think about, you know what? God opened that door for me because I was doing good work. Like I was doing my charity golf outing. I was doing work. I was helping others. If I didn't do that charity golf outing, that guy didn't connect me on a charity golf outing. That was my link to this story to help me in my career. And I'm not sure that happens, right? But here you are doing good, right? It comes back to you, right? And so there are so many stories like that, man, that I've been just blessed throughout my career where God is like just has been right there, but it's like you're trying to do good things, trying to show grace to others, and God comes back and gives it back to you. And so
There's been so many moments like that, just from the mentors in my life. My mentors, Jim Nance. Who would have thought that? In my career, I mean, it's he's one of my closest friends, and that happened because of this journey here in Indy. I mean, he saw me on television during the Final Four nearly 20 years ago. Came up to me, told me, he said, "Young man, you got great potential. You're going to make in this business." And I said to him, "Thank you so much." I was blown away. I remember leaving and just couldn't believe he said this to me. And then I eventually started thinking. I've always been a networker, and I was like, you know what? I got to link up with this guy somehow. So I remember at the time just seeing him on that Monday night and say, "Hey, I appreciate you saying that. It meant a lot to me. I'm glad you got to see me on TV. But I'd love to stay connected with you." And he's like, "Yeah, send my stuff to his assistant." And I remember him sending I think it was a DVD back then, DVD tape to him.
Yeah.
And we've been friends ever since. And I just want to say this about him because I want to, give him his flowers because he's had such an impact on my life just professionally. But the one thing about him, and this is a spiritual side that I love about Jim Nance, is that, and he's helped me in just in so many ways, but the grace that he shows others around him. Like, I can't say enough about him, just how that has really just kind of, I think about him all the time when I'm trying to, just show those examples to people, because that's what he does. And I think in our industry, we need more people like that. We need more individuals who can say thank you, can appreciate your staff, appreciate the people, the men and women that help you get on television, to help you, get through a tough moment on air, or whatever it may be. And so that's the beautiful thing about my friendship and just his mentorship with me over the years, is that just the grace that he has shown others. And they're all those guys who have done so well in this industry that I've been connected with, the God's blessing with. They all do that. From Ernie Johnson, we talked about Ernie, and just what he demonstrates, all those fruits of the spirit, if you will, just around people. And but that's been like this journey for me, just meeting those individuals through this job I have here in Indy. But Jim has been just an awesome soul, and been a blessing, man. Been a blessing.
I'm so glad you gave him his flowers because he deserves it. But grace, humility, kindness, gentleness, things that we read about in Scripture, when people exude those, you exude those, my brother, too. I'm giving you your flowers now. When I talk to people who exude those, like, there's an aroma. The Bible talks about the aroma. I think Paul talks about this aroma that's so attractive that you want to not just be around these people, but you want to be like these people, ultimately Christ. But those are characteristics of who Jesus is. And in this business, just speaking truth there, Anthony, those can be few and far between, to find people who are not just great at what they do, but they're kind, compassionate, humble, gentle, meek. And I just love that you shared that about Jim Nance. But that's something that I wish more people, especially young people coming up, would feel like that's going to stand out just as much as you're working hard, or you're spending hours grinding and doing whatever it takes. Like, come with those characteristics too, right?
Yeah, man, I agree. And like, I try to, like I said earlier, I try to talk to young people about always important to show appreciation, say thank you for things. You know what I mean? Like, just don't take anything for granted. Look, I'll be honest, here's I am with me, and I don't know if you feel this way, but like, when a young person I've helped out, they send me a thank you note, or they respond back, thank you, in a text or whatever, man, I'm willing to break through a wall for them, right?
Yes.
Because I'm huge on appreciation and just gratitude, right? And you're willing to, pick up the phone and make a call for someone to help them get a job. And so those are traits. I'd rather take someone. Hard work matters. We know that. I'm not saying that, but like you talk about those traits. Like, you'll do anything for someone who's respectful and shows grace, and who's just a good person, right?
Yes.
Good qualities. You only do anything for them. And so, like going back to what you said, like I have such appreciation for that, and it's important, and you have to have those skills, and even in our business today, because I look at like sportscasters, we're kind of like athletes and actors, right? It seems like everybody wants to do what we do, so the competition is extremely tough to get in this business, right? So you got to stand out, you got to be different, you got to write the extra thank you note, you got to go the extra mile to get the extra interview, you got to do the bonus stuff to separate yourself. Like I'll tell you a great story about Mike Tirico. He showed this with me, and I remember I was from my early age of just kind of doing doing play-by-play for ESPN, doing some stuff for Butler basketball. And I remember talking to him, and he was like, you can't just read those game notes and those stats. Like, you got to do more. Like, you got to do the extra. Like, you got to meet with the SIDs. You got to connect with the coaches. You got to read the local newspaper to find out what's going on in town. I think he told us he every time he goes into a city for games, like he reads the local newspaper like every day, just so we can be familiar with what's going on. That's Mike Tirico set himself apart. Obviously we know he's one of the best to ever do it, but like things like that. And I think it goes beyond just the stats and reading the newspaper, but your character as well, just being nice to folks and, showing appreciation, gratitude and things like that. And it's definitely important.
Yeah, I saw Tirico in action when I was at ESPN, and my gosh, like he's just so good.
Yeah.
Makes it's like an athlete who, when you watch him, you're like, man, that's easy for them, but you don't realize behind the scenes, like the things you just described, what goes into making them great.
Yeah.
I'm glad you shared that. Let me wind down with this. I'd love to hear your thoughts on being an ambassador for Christ, being an example for Christ. I think it's 2 Corinthians 5:20 says that Paul says, I am an ambassador for Christ, right? And I represent him everywhere I go. That's us, right? Wherever we go, we're representing him. How do you live out your faith? Because you're pretty vocal. You don't shy away from your faith, but you're never pushy or forcing it on anybody.
Yeah.
But what is it about living? Something that you've seen that you can live out your faith as a public figure, but just in general as a follower of Jesus?
Yeah, I think for us, it's like my mom and dad used to talk about this, how like, it's kind of in your blood. You know what I mean? It's kind of like it's who it's who you grew up as, faith has always been important in my life. I wouldn't be where I am today, as I said before, if it weren't for my faith, was my relationship with Jesus Christ. I wouldn't be where the gifts I've been given in my life, if it weren't for having that connection with him. And so for me, even through, like I talk about my charity golf outing, I think those are actions of living out your faith, living out what you're kind of called to do. If you go to my golf outing, you see, like I talked about in Luke, too much is given, much is required. Like, that's living out your faith. That's sharing with individuals, kind of what you're called to do. Like, I don't just get all these gifts and, this blessed with a beautiful job and things like that without making some sacrifice, like giving something back, so that to me is like, it's a sign of living out your faith, trying to show grace to people around you. We're not perfect. We all have our struggles, we're not, I never testify that, hey, I'm the perfect person on earth. That there's only one person did that, right?
That's right.
But I don't, you just try to be who you are, trust God in everything you do. And like I said, it's in your blood. You just do what's right. You just do, do what you're called to do. And so to kind of answer your question, for me, that's just kind of like living your life, doing your, if anybody gets in the car with me, they're going to know, you're going to listen to, I'm going to have maybe Jeremy Camp on in my car. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's going to be, I'm going to have that. And that's that I don't listen to, some hip hop or whatever times, but like, that'll be playing it, in my car and things like that. So you just do what you're called to do. But for me personally, this is about, thinking about, I think about the love that Christ showed to others around him. And I just pray that our country will, and our world will continue to just, show love towards others and, just the respect that we all deserve. And, you just hope we see more of that. And, as a believer, that's kind of our job, just to continue sprinkling grace to others around you.
Yeah. Love God, love others. That's That's a pretty good mantra for all of us.
Yeah.
Listen, I appreciate you. I'm so glad that there was a Sports
Yeah,
Spectrum
man.
back in the day too.
Yeah.
That brought it full circle to this conversation today, Anthony. So good stuff, man. Thanks for joining us. I really appreciate you.
No problem, man. Keep doing what you're doing, man. You're just such a a lifter. You know what I mean? To so many people, and just your encouragement. It's amazing how much your podcast is taking off, and the platform that you have, and it's great to see just you just sharing the gospel and doing what you're doing. And as I said before, man, every time I think of Sports Spectrum, bro, I go back 1992.
Yes.
In high school, man, just reading the magazine, and just man, all those great stories. And now to see you continue to carry this, just this beautiful platform, and just that has touched so many lives. It's powerful stuff, man. Just keep doing good work.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Okay, God bless you, man.
Hey, thanks for watching Sports Spectrum here on YouTube. You can click our next video, or you can check out our website, sportspectrum.com.